Hey, welcome back to Snapbolt Games. My name is Max, and I'm back with the top 5 commons from the new Magic the Gathering set, Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth. And what we're going to do in this video, we're going to keep it quick. I'm going to go through a couple honorable mentions from commons from the set, and then we're going to get right into the top 5 commons. I'm going to use some of these as a jumping off point to talk about certain aspects of the set and what I'm excited to play with. But without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Let's get to the first honorable mention from Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth. The first card I want to talk about is Birthday Escape. It's 1 blue sorcery. Draw a card. The ring tempts you. So first, to understand what this card does, we need to understand what the ring tempting you does. And let's get into that. This is essentially an emblem you get. When the ring tempts you, you move down this emblem. You get the ring emblem gains one of these abilities each time the ring tempts you, and you choose a creature as your ring bearer. So when the ring tempts you the first time, you choose a creature, your ring bearer is legendary and can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. Okay, so it doesn't do that much the first time. The second time the ring tempts you, you can either keep your ring bearer the same creature, or you can choose a new creature for your ring bearer. And then again, the ring emblem, the ring, always gains these abilities for the rest of the game. So when the ring bearer attacks, draw a card, then discard a card. Sure, that's pretty good. So it turns your creature into a looter. Then the third ability, when your ring bearer becomes blocked by a creature, that creature controller sacrifices at the end of combat. Okay, it's harder to block your creature. The last ability, the best one, when your ring bearer deals combat damage to a player, each opponent loses 3 life. So as the ring continues to tempt you for the first 4 times, the ring gains these abilities for the rest of the game. Then, as you can see, if you keep, uh, activating the ring tempts you, if you keep playing cards where the ring tempts you, all you'll do is choose new creatures as your ring bearer. So if they kill your ring bearer and then you tempt again, you'll choose a new creature. I think this could be pretty reasonable, especially in a deck like Mono Blue Aggro if you're playing a card like Birthday Escape. It's kind of rough because this is going to take a spot where you could play Ponder or Preordain, but if you're getting to the later abilities of the ring, it's really powerful. Having your 1/1 hit for 4 when it hits them is really strong. And then if they block it, you trade for any creature. You're looting on all these attacks. The looting is huge. The looting I could see being pretty good. So all these abilities are strong. The one downside I see of the ring is if you have just put a ton of cards in your deck that say tempt, then you don't get that much after the fourth. You just get to choose a new creature. But if you already have a ring bearer, then future tempts don't do anything. So I see that being a big problem with the ring. That being said, these abilities are powerful. If you have the right balance, I could see it being good. I think it's going to be kind of like a thing where you want a lower number of temps in your deck, maybe like 4 to 8, 10 at the most. Because again, once you get past 4, it's not going to be that good as is what it seemed like to me. And 4, not quite enough, because then you're not going to get down to these bottom abilities. So it's kind of like a toss up where you want to tempt enough to have your creatures be a ring bearer and actually get through and go down this chapter, but you don't want too much. So we'll see how it ends up playing out. But those are my thoughts on tempting. Let's move on to the next honorable mention here, and that is, I don't know how to say this, Hithlane Knots. 2 mana instant, tap target creature, scry 1, draw a card. So 2 mana, scry 1, draw a card, not good enough. But tapping a creature, it just seems interesting. I've always wanted to play with these cards that are 2 mana instant, tap a creature, draw a card. They're not quite good enough. This, we get the scry one, makes it a little bit better. I want this to work in some type of blue-white control deck. It's not really good enough, but it's just a card that I want to work. It would be fun to play with, but yeah, not quite there. Let's continue to move right along. These next ones will be quicker. We have Hobbit Sting, 2 mana instant. Hobbit Sting deals X damage to target creature, where X is the number of creatures you control plus the number of foods you control. If you just eliminate the foods part, I think this card could be reasonable in like the mono white, go wide, kind of like aggro mid-range type of deck. If you're like a mono white tokens deck or something, as your removal spell over Journey could be reasonable. You do open yourself up to getting blown out, but I can see, especially in low numbers, this being a reasonable white removal spell. we're getting closer and closer to the point where we're getting like reasonable removal spells in white. We're not quite in Pauper where we have a card like Path or just one really good white removal spell that allows us to play like a blue white control style deck. We're not there, um, and this is not it. But we can hope, right? We can hope. Okay, let's move on. The last honorable mention here, we got Lambuz. This is 2 mana. When it enters the battlefield, scry 1, then draw a card. 2 mana tap, sacrifice Lambuz. I'm probably butchering these names. Oh man, I'm going to hear it. You gain 3 life. So it's 2 mana food. And then when it's put into a graveyard, and the scry 1, draw a card, don't forget that. When it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, its owner shuffles it into their library. Okay, that last part doesn't do that much. But essentially 2 mana artifact, scry 1, draw, and then you can sack it. So this is just an upgrade to Golden Egg. And I don't see this essentially seeing widespread play. But if you are exactly Borrowed Synth, that deck plays Golden Egg, but then you would just want this card over it. Scry 1, draw is a lot better than just straight draw. You can still sack to gain 3. If the game goes really long, you can keep drawing this card as it gets shuffled back in when you sacrifice it. So I could see some use for this card. Again, you're not going to want to play this over Ichor Wellspring, not even close. Being able to draw 2 with Ichor Wellspring is much better than scry 1, draw. Not even a contest there. But this card is interesting. It should see play in at least one deck, and I guess it could see more play. All right. Number 5 card, we got Rally at Hornburg. 2 mana sorcery, create 2 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. Humans you control gain haste until end of turn. This card's interesting. This is the strongest card we've seen at 2 mana that makes 2 1/1s. 2 mana make 2 1/1s with haste is really nice. They're white. In a red deck that can be relevant to have some red creatures and now some white creatures. This card is also somewhat of a combo with Burning Tree Emissary. Burning Tree Emissary is the red green hybrid 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you make red and green mana, so it pays for itself. So everyone knows you can go like Burning Tree into Burning Tree into Burning Tree, but if you end the chain with Rally, Burning Tree is also a human. So even if you just play 1 Burning Tree on turn 2 and then play Rally, you hit for 4 that turn on turn 2. That's pretty strong. So I could see it being used in some type of mono red aggro deck there. I could see this being used in other type of tokens decks, maybe in Boros decks. I don't know if it's quite good enough, but the Burning Tree synergy is interesting to me, so that's something to consider. All right, let's keep going. Number 4 card is Lorien Revealed. 5 mana sorcery, draw 3 cards, island cycling for 1. Okay, it doesn't sound like it really is good at all, right? And that's the first thing I thought when I read the card. I was like, this is unplayable. 5 mana sorcery, draw 3. There's a bunch of those that already exist that's not playable in Pauper. Island cycling for 1, I was like, that doesn't really change anything. Sure, island cycling is nice. You can get a land when you don't have the 5 mana, but then I was like, yeah, but then the problem is like, you put this card in your deck, it's just island cycling 1. Like, you never really want to do 5 mana draw 3 unless you're in a specific situation of a grindy game where you're able to actually cast this and resolve it. It's so unlikely that you're just going to want to tap 5 mana to try to draw 3. But then I learned a couple other interesting parts about this card. And the island cycling, actually, I should say, one of my friends reached out and said, oh, this card looks good. And I said, no, it's unplayable. But then they made a good point. Island cycling, it gives you another shuffle effect for Brainstorm, which is pretty nice. But then even more so, specifically in Blue-Black Terror and Tolarian Terror with Gurmag Angler, it's good with the island cycling because of Brainstorm. But when you island cycle this card, you put a spell into your graveyard for Tolarian Terror, and it's actually island cycling. It's not basic land cycling. So this actually gets an island or a dual land. So it's essentially, it's not as good as Ash Barrens because you can't get untapped Swamp, but you can find a black source for 1 colorless mana with this. It puts a spell in the graveyard. That deck actually might want a 5 mana draw 3, at least in some number. What you don't need to play 4 necessarily because then you're overloading on these like island cyclers. But if you have 1 or 2, you just have another type of, you could play this like over an Ash Barrens, and then you have one Ash Barrens essentially that gets you a duel, an island, or late game is a 5 mana draw 3. So this card seems sweet. This card seems sweet. Does seem better than I initially thought. Again, I thought it was unplayable, but I think it could be, reasonable in that deck and maybe in some other areas as well. All right, number 3 card. This one I'm excited about. I've already been brewing around this card a ton. Um, and that is Mirkwood Bats. Every commander player's nightmare here. 4 mana, 2/3 flying. Whenever you create or sacrifice a token, each opponent loses 1 life. So it doesn't seem like much. Sure, dies to Lightning Bolt. Yeah, we know. But the ability on this card is really, really powerful. And Commanders players hate it because it just combos with treasures, essentially. If you have this out and you create 1 treasure, you drain for 2 because you create the treasure, drain for 1, then sack the treasure for mana, drain for another 1. So this goes off just really hard, and it doesn't say the clause of if you create 1 or more tokens or sacrifice 1 or more. So if you call Doth Rebirth, you drain for 3 with this out. And there just seems like a ton of stuff to do with this in various token decks, whether you want to try to focus on treasures, or just play the already good token producers. There's a ton of them. Deadly Dispute, there's Blood Fountain, there's the Kuldotha Rebirth, like I mentioned, and there's a lot more. Um, so yeah, this card is 4 mana and dies to Lightning Bolt, but an unanswered Mirkwood Bats should just kill really, really fast. Plus, there could be some combo setups where you're making a bunch of treasures and you just drain them out with this. So yeah, this card number 3 on the list could be higher, might be unplayable, but the power level is there, and I'm trying to brew with it. And even if it's not quite the best card in the set or makes like top strategy decks, top tier 1 decks, it's going to be a really fun card to play with in Pauper. So I'm excited to play with it. All right, number 2 card from the set, we have Cast into the Fire. This debatably could have been my number 1 card. This card is 2 mana instant, choose 1. Cast into the Fire deals 1 damage to each of up to 2 target creatures or exile target artifact. I think this card is totally main deckable. This is a great sideboard card as well. The first option in Pauper is relevant a lot of the time. There's a ton of 1 toughness creatures, so you're just able to get a 2-for-1 a lot of the time. It sucks that you can't deal 2 to 1 creature, but people already main deck Smash to Dust, they main deck Electricity, and then just having the option on that type of card to exile an artifact against Affinity, which is the best deck in the format, or at least one of the 2 best decks in the format with red. This card just seems incredible. Having split card like that is just so nice. It's an instant. I see this being good in control type of decks. Maybe like Izzet Fairies could play 1 or 2 of these main deck. I could see other control style decks picking this up. I don't really think aggro decks are going to want to play this in the main deck, but a control deck would definitely want to play this. I think over Smash does. I think it's just better straight up. Sure, you can't deal 1 damage to 5 creatures, but even if you're playing against elves and you just fire this off, you're going to be so far ahead. And then just having this split card exile a bridge, that's so nice. It's just seems really strong to me. Definitely will see play in the top decks, at least in some numbers. Will be in sideboards. Seems like a great card. Okay, like I said, that could have been number 1, but for our number 1 card, we have Improvised Club. 2 mana instant, as an additional cost, sack an artifact or creature, deals 4 damage to any target. So I've wanted to get Shrapnel Blast in Pauper for a long time, and it's not been downshifted. I should take a step back. I don't actually want it in the format, but I think it would be a really, really strong card. I should have gotten a completely different angle with this, because I was going to come at this card and say, wow, look at the number 1 card from the set, the best deck in the format, arguably Affinity, but red is just kind of the scourge of the format at the moment, debatably the best deck. And this is just another tool for those decks. I see this being really good. You don't even necessarily have to play Ichor Wellspring, but you can. It's just so good with that. It's so good with Experimental Synthesizer. You can just sack a land. 4 damage is so much more than 3. So yeah, I see this card being fantastic in the mono red decks. I already have some builds with this card lined up. You don't have to change that much. You can still have your 8 Reckless Impulse. You can have this card. just another way to deal 4 damage just seems absolutely massive. There could be some setups where you're playing black-red as well. You can play Deadly Dispute, so playing this Ichor Wellspring Experimental Synthesizer, you're off to the races right now. Yeah, this card just seems really strong. It can kill Mirror Enforcer, 4 to the face, pretty much does everything you want it to do. Sacrificing an artifact, like when you're sacking Synth or Ichor Wellspring, that's just upside. So 2 mana, deal 4 damage with upside if you build your deck, in a way to do that. Just really, really strong. Okay, and that's going to wrap up this video. Thank you for watching. Those are my top 5 cards from Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth. Hope you enjoyed. And let me know in the comments what your favorite cards are. And yeah, just please let me know all the cards that I left off the list that you that you wished I talked about, because I know that's coming. Thanks so much for watching. Till next time. Peace.